sold your house to teach you a lesson about respect. My stepmother sneered over the phone. The new owners move in next week. I smiled, remembering the secret meeting with my late father's lawyer. Good luck with that, I replied. She had no idea what was coming. Update 2. By the time I left for college at UCLA, as far from Boston as I could reasonably go, Dad was calling me less frequently, always when Brendan was out. Our conversations felt rushed and guarded. When I'd ask about coming home for a weekend, there was always some reason why it wasn't a good time. Brendan was hosting a work event. Brendan was remodeling the guest room. Brenda thought it would be better if I visited during scheduled breaks when they could properly prepare. So I adapted. I spent holidays with friends or with Aunt Carol, who had been similarly exiled. I focused on my studies, double majoring in architecture and historic preservation, a tribute to both my parents that went unrecognized by my father. Still, Dad found ways to maintain our connection. He'd send care packages to my dorm with notes saying, "Don't tell Brenda how much chocolate I sent." He'd make business trips to California that conveniently coincided with my semester breaks. During these stolen moments, I'd catch glimpses of my real father, the one who laughed easily and spoke passionately about his projects, the one who wasn't constantly checking his phone to respond to Brenda's texts. During my senior year of college, Dad surprised me by flying out for a weekend alone. "Brenda thinks I'm at a conference in Chicago," he confessed as we walked along the Santa Monica Pier. "I needed to see you, Maddie, to talk to you without interference." That day he asked detailed questions about my life, my studies, my goals after graduation. He seemed particularly interested in my thesis project on adaptive reuse of historic properties. "You have your mother's eye and my technical mind," he said proudly, "the perfect combination." Before he left, he hugged me tighter than usual. "I've made some mistakes, Madison," he said, using my full name as he always did when he was serious. "But I want you to know that you are the most important person in my life. Never doubt that." I didn't know then that he was saying goodbye in his way. I didn't know that he'd already received his diagnosis. The call came on a Tuesday morning during my first year working at a historic preservation firm in San Francisco. Aunt Carol's voice was tight with both grief and anger. "Your father's sick, Madison. It's cancer, pancreatic, and it's advanced. The doctors are giving him months, not years." The shock hit me physically, making my knees buckle as I sat heavily in my office chair. How long had he known? At least 6 weeks from what I could gather. Brenda had been controlling who got information and when. "I only found out because I ran into James from your dad's firm. I was on a plane that afternoon. During the 5-hour flight, my mind raced through all the signs I might have missed. Dad had looked thinner when we video chatted last month. He'd seemed tired, but I'd attributed that to a big project he was finishing. He'd mentioned stomach pain, but blamed it on Brenda's experimental cooking. When I arrived at the house, my house, our house, though it hardly looked the same anymore, Brenda answered the door with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Madison, what a surprise," she said, blocking the entrance slightly. "We weren't expecting you." "I came as soon as I heard about Dad," I said, refusing to play along with her charade. "Where is he?" "Your father is resting. The medication makes him very tired. Perhaps you should have called first." From behind her I heard Dad's voice, weak but insistent. "Is that Maddie? Let her in, Brenda." She stepped aside reluctantly, and I rushed past her to the downstairs study, which had been converted to a bedroom for Dad. The sight of him nearly broke me. The robust, energetic man who had taught me to ride a bike and build model bridges, was now thin and jaundiced, his designer clothes hanging loose on his frame. But his eyes lit up when he saw me, and for a moment, he was just my dad again. "Madison," he said, reaching for me. "My girl, you came." I sat beside him, taking his hand carefully, afraid of dislodging the tubes that ran to a port in his chest. "Of course I came. Why didn't you tell me sooner?" He glanced toward the door where Brenda hovered. "We didn't want to worry you until we had a treatment plan in place." I bit back my response. There was no we in this situation. I knew with absolute certainty that Brenda had kept this from me deliberately, likely hoping Dad would be too sick to see me by the time I found out. Over the next few weeks, I took a leave of absence from my job and moved back into my old bedroom, which Brenda had thankfully not yet converted to the home gym she'd been planning. I coordinated with Dad's doctors, arranged for a home health nurse, and spent every possible moment with him. Brenda was visibly annoyed by my presence, but couldn't object without seeming heartless. Instead, she found subtle ways to assert her control, rescheduling nurse visits without telling me, accidentally, discarding the soft foods I prepared for Dad, insisting on accompanying him to appointments where she would speak over both of us. But she couldn't be there all the time. She had her real estate business to run, and social obligations she deemed too important to miss, despite my father's condition. During these precious hours alone with Dad, we reconnected in a way we hadn't been able to in years. "I'm sorry, Maddie," he told me one afternoon, as we looked through old family albums I'd rescued from the attic. "I let her come between us, between me and everyone who mattered." "It's okay, Dad," I said, though we both knew it wasn't. "No, it's not. I was weak. After your mother died, I was so lost." Brenda was decisive when I couldn't be strong, when I felt broken, but that strength, it became a wall. I see that now. On days when he felt stronger, Dad would ask me to help him to the sunroom, the one space Brenda hadn't completely redesigned, perhaps because she rarely used it. There, surrounded by the offspring of my mother's beloved plants that the housekeeper had quietly continued to tend, Dad began to have mysterious private conversations with me. I need you to understand something, Madison, he said one day, his voice barely above a whisper. Things aren't always what they seem. I've made arrangements to make things right. What kind of arrangements, Dad? I asked, but he shook his head. Not now, after. I need you to promise me you'll meet with Harrison, my attorney, after I'm gone, no matter what happens at the reading of the will. Promise me. I promise, I said, confused but unwilling to stress him by pressing for details. Now you can watch the third part by pressing share and more.